Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Dustin and welcome to part 2 of the Folger Tech Kossel videos series thing, calibration, blah blah blah. This one's going to be about the Arduino code and things you need to change around in that to make it work. I'm probably not going to get into slicer stuff or repetier host controlling yet. That'll probably be the next video. And sorry I didn't do this video sooner. Christmas time was just a week ago, and you know how that is with family and blah blah blah. I didn't really have time to do it, and it's the holidays. I wanted to take a break. So anyway, screw an intro. Let's just get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is head over to the link that's either going to be in the description or Folger Tech's website, and it's going to be a link to their Google Drive page, which is going to be the one for the Kossel specifically. On there, they're going to have the build guide and this and that and the other. But the main thing that you want to find from here is going to be this right here. This is the Kossel RevB Arduino code. So all this nonsense right here is the various files from the code itself. So once you click the file, you should see this right here, and this little sign right here is going to be download. Just click that and it'll download to wherever you put downloads and all that kind of nonsense. The next thing you're going to want to do is go over to arduino.cc or just Google Arduino software, and this will be the software page. You're going to need the Arduino installer for Windows or Mac or Linux, whenever you use. That's up to you. You just need the Arduino software to be able to control any of this software that we're going to be messing with. So download that, install that. I'm not going to go into that. Just if you can't install programs, you really shouldn't be messing with 3D printers like this. So get on that. So once you open up the Arduino software just like this, make sure you've unzipped the zip file that you downloaded from Folger Tech's Google Drive thing, and head on over to open, and then you'll see in the download something called Kossel RevB. There's a couple other things. These are mine that I've named, but this is the one you're going to want. And just double click onto the files. You'll see all the normal files right here, and you can pretty much open any of them, but I usually open the kosselrevb.ino. Just click that, it's going to open up another thing, and this is going to be the stock code for the printer. So now that you're in the Arduino software and you will have the stock code up that Folger Tech offers you, there's quite a few things that you need to modify, or not necessarily modify, but look at, and you may need to change things depending on your printer. And by the way, this is totally not me re-recording this on another day because I screwed up. See this video right here, if there's a little card there. Yeah. Anyway, so one thing I should mention before I go into any of these settings is going to be, this is not necessarily where you're going to be calibrating these settings to begin with. This is more going to be a video of what the specific variables do. When we get to the calibration and repetier host and actually printing something, that's where you're going to want to be modifying these variables. But this video is more so going to be what each variable does and how you want to modify it, not the actual modification of the variables with testing. If you want to go and do that because you already know how to do repetier host, that's fine, but that's not what this video is going to be about. The next video will do that. So basically you need to come over here and click on configuration.h. That is where pretty much everything we're going to be messing with is. First thing you're going to want to do is scroll down to where it says Delta Settings, and the Delta Settings is basically the settings that are specific to these Delta style printers versus Cartesian printers. And this is actually where I screwed up in my previous attempt at making this video. What these things do, I said, were different, blah blah blah. Anyway, correct thing is going to be this. Delta diagonal rod, this right here, this is supposed to be the center to center distance of the holes in the diagonal push rods. So that is supposed to be 240 millimeter. So I have it set at 240 millimeter, and it is accurate. If your scaling for your print is too big or too small, this is what you need to change. The lower the number, the bigger the print is going to print, at least in my case. So if you have this set at 240 millimeter and your print is going to be a little too small, lower this number. If your print is printing dimensionally too big, then raise the number. 240 is what it should be around, and also I've noticed that the size is completely in the X and Y axis of the print. It doesn't seem that this affects the Z axis at all. The next thing is going to be the Delta Smooth Rod Offset, and what I I originally said that this also messes with the scaling, but it doesn't. This is actually what affects the concavity of how it prints. Now, because the way the printer is designed, it has to compensate for it moving in one direction, or else the extruder is going to lift up on the edges or go down on the edges depending on how it's calibrated. Now, the stock on this should be 187 millimeters. That is exactly what they tell you to do right here in the stock settings, and that's probably what it is for you guys. If it's not, then change it to that. That actually has been able to give me perfect flatness all the way across the board. I noticed that with the previous setup that I had that I screwed up with in the previous version of this video, the hot end nozzle would be running into the bed, and that's not good. At 187 in my case, it works perfectly. These effector offsets also should be 19.9 millimeters. Originally, I thought these should be 25 because that is the offset. That is the actual length of them, but it turns out this is the horizontal offset, not the actual linear offset, because it is diagonal, it's trigonometry and blah, 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 blah. So basically, just put it at 19.9. That's what mine are set at, and it should work for you. All the settings that you see right here, if you have set up the printer correctly, should get you a pretty close to working just already. And I think these are default when you open up the print software. I'm not 100% sure on that. All this nonsense right here, you don't have to screw with. This is all just trigonometry. Don't worry about it. Now, right in here is all the end stop logic. You will have to mess with this when you get to the end stop calibration, which is going to be in the next video when I talk about the slicers and repetier host and all that. You don't have to touch it right now because it might be okay, but you may have to modify the logic of certain end stops depending on how they're wired and where you have them, if you have them differently than you're supposed to. One thing you can modify right now is this section right here where it says end stop settings. You'll see X home, Y home, and Z home direction. All those should be set to 1 because the end stops should be at the max of the printer. The Z probe offset right here, I'm not going to show you how to change that specifically or how to calibrate it right now because you do need the control software to work it. But when you get to changing the offset for the Z probe compared to where it is to the nozzle, this is where you're going to do it. The most important thing right here is going to be the Z offset. You're going to pretty much want that to be always say something. For right now, mine says negative 0.6, and that's giving me a really good bed height. Or print nozzle height from the bed on the first layer. It sticks really well. I didn't do any calibration on that when I built this. I just managed to get the probe right in the perfect spot for it. So I'm happy about that. I'm going to leave it where it is. But that is something that you're going to need to modify when we get to it in the next video. Another thing you're going to want to modify in here is the manual Z home position, which is this right here. That is basically going to give you your, that basically tells the printer the max that it's allowed to travel. From my understanding, which I could be wrong, this value right here is supposed to be the distance from the nozzle, the very tip of the nozzle, to the bed once you're at max, once you've homed the printer. I guess the idea is if something happens to the bed sensor, it won't let it go past this variable right here. So you want this to be pretty much the exact distance to the actual bed itself. Now, of course, if you're printing correctly, you should never hit the bed. You should never actually touch the bed with the nozzle. So this would only be the basically touching the bed, but it's not plowing through it. Whereas if you set this at a much higher number, it's runs the possibility of slamming through and trying to go through the plate, which is going to damage things, and you don't want that to happen. The last thing that I think I need to mention, unless I come up with something else, is going to be this right here. So this is in additional features, also in configuration.h. The define EEPROM settings and the define EEPROM chit chat. That is going to enable EEPROM on your printer. It's commented out from stock, and I recommend you don't enable this until you have the setup, until you have this calibrated correctly to where it actually will print without it. Once you enable EEPROM, then it'll start storing the information correctly in the printer, so you don't have to bed level every single time. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still not very good at EEPROM. I don't usually use it, but this is where you're going to be able to enable it. Another thing, if you're looking for it, over in marlin_main.cpp, This is where the bed level array is actually stored, and that's where the EEPROM comes in, and it stores the bed leveling array on all the different points. You can modify this. I haven't got it to work personally for me, but this is one area where you're going to modify the array to where it'll you can take different smaller amount of points or a larger amount of points on the actual bed. I don't recommend messing with it because it works if you don't, and I've messed with it and ruined everything. So it'd be better if you don't mess with that. Again, EEPROM is one of those things I'm not that good at. I don't usually use it, although the auto bed leveling does work, and I will get into that because it is a G-code thing. That will be in the next video when I talk about Repetier Host. That should be coming sooner than the time between my last video and this one. So be prepared for that. Probably either the end of this week, maybe early next week. I'm not 100% sure because New Year's and I have to work this weekend, blah, blah, blah. So although we don't need to do it right now, pretty much if you have your printer plugged in and the Arduino software, the Arduino is on and everything's powered up on your printer, when you want to export this code into the Arduino, you have to make sure it's not connected to Repetier Host. You do not want it to be connected. Just make sure you disconnect the printer if you haven't already. And all you have to do is go up here and hit this upload button, and that will upload it into the Arduino software. You'll see some settings that you'll see a little display that'll say uploading or verifying. It's going to verify the code first, make sure there's nothing wrong with the code, and then it'll upload it. If you see any errors, you may need to adjust the port number or the baud rate. I'll get into that in the next video when when we actually do the calibration with the software and Repetier Host and all that. If I notice anything when I'm editing this video or afterwards, I might make a follow-up video if need be. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked about right here, just comment on YouTube, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. If you have any questions and there's a bunch of people talking about one thing, then I'll do another video talking about any comments, this and that and the other. But this is just a basic overview of these are the main things you're going to want to change. And I will come back to this when I get into Repetier Host as well, because they kind of go hand in hand. It's hard to do just one by itself, but you know, I gotta split up this video because it'll be too hard if I don't. So anyway, thank you again for watching. Hopefully this solved a couple questions. If nothing else, it helps someone out. So thanks for watching again. Subscribe, like, and comment. If you have any questions, feel free to follow me on Twitter. You can message me on there, and I can get in contact with you really quickly. You can also follow when I post videos, blah, 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 all that stuff. Thank you for all the 191 subscribers I have right now, and thank you for any future ones that I'll get from this series and any other videos. And until the next video, I'll see y'all later.